Hello, this is Lee back again for another review. And you may have noticed on some of these reviews that when we have a 4-volume, weekend, the first volume seems to take forever because I'm just talking about all of the new wrestlers and my impressions of them. Generally, those impressions don't change much throughout the weekend. And so the later shows, I kind of wrap it up a little bit more. I usually have more to say about the live shows. Well, this is one of those. This is a live show. This was volume 46, following on the heels of 45. This is, of course, 7.5 hours of wrestling. My first live experience, I had great seats. I believe, let's see, was I sitting in the Joshi fans section? I can't remember. I'll have to think about it some more. But it's kind of like if you walk into the Berwyn Eagles Club, where most of these shows are recorded, in Chicagoland area of Illinois, you'll kind of file in past a kind of a ticket table. You kind of go down some steps, and you'll walk into an area, and you'll see there's the ring in the middle of the club, which is just this big open area, and you can kind of file down. There's like a row of seats in front of you, and then on the two sides of the ring, there's two, big rows, and then on the far side, there's another row of seats, and there's a stage. I'm trying to think now if the stage is on the far side, on the other side, but where the stage is, there's some fixed cameras that are pointing, and some people sit just so they can be on the camera. That's their preference as fans, I suppose. But one side, there will be a bunch of fans, specifically a fan section for the Japanese wrestlers. And of course, you buy a ticket, you sit wherever you want, but they have posters, mostly created by one super fan. Super Cousin is his call sign, if you will. Big fan. He's made all these kind of cartoon-esque, caricatures of the wrestlers. There's another guy, he created these painted cardboard cutouts of the wrestlers, in cartoon form, and people kind of hold these sticks, and it's quite fun what the fans get up to. But anyway, there's that one section, and then on the other side is where a lot of the cameramen like to hang out. And I discovered that on this show, that I was sitting right where the cameraman wanted to be, so he was right in my face, so I was looking at his back half the time. And after that first show, those first 3 hours or so, I was moving around, kind of looking over, kind of standing above him, and I kind of maneuvered around so that I could see a little bit better. Because I think some of the people left. It's a lot to take in. But I definitely think the fan experience was better the first time, even though at that first show there was someone yelling in my ear. I think they were behind me, and they were yelling to somebody ahead of me, and so by the end of the evening my ear was ringing. I had trouble hearing because they had been yelling stuff constantly in my ear all night. It was fun, but it was painful. So anyway, this show, my seats were not as good, but the show was wonderful. Overall, fantastic. But 41-42, still the best, still better than this. Both in terms of the actual content, minus the nostalgia and the live experience. So now I will go into discussing the actual matches for this. Now, for Courtney Rush versus Sassy Steffi, if I had to root for one of them, it would be Courtney Rush. I greatly appreciated her kind of rising star character before she became kind of a lovable goof. Sassy Steffi didn't see much in that I liked overall. As with many of the women, she works hard, she has a character she plays, just not one of my favorites. But the match was okay to start things off. I think the wrestlers that do this match at the kind of the halfway point have a kind of a difficult job because some of the fans have left. Sometimes people come late. Maybe they buy a ticket, but they don't want to sit around for the whole time, or they have had enough and go home. So sometimes there's a little bit of a pause, and people are tired. people are drinking coffee to stay awake. Sometimes it's just a lot to take in. And so these wrestlers really have to get things going, get people on their feet, get people back into action. But sometimes it takes a match like this just to kind of like wake people up. And then for the next match, they're ready to go. So I think these wrestlers are not as appreciated. Watching it back again on digital versatile disc, of course, you don't have that problem. It was an okay match. Not super good, but good enough, I think. If you take even some of the worst Shimmer matches and place them against what's on television, Shimmer still is better. But there you go. When you've seen so many good matches, it's hard, though, to maintain a kind of low expectations, if you will. Veda Scott versus Saraya Knight. As you can imagine, this is another case of simply a bully versus an underdog. And I was not rooting for Saraya Knight to win, but it was kind of a foregone conclusion that she would destroy Veda Scott, and no matter what the fans had to say about it. Poor Veda Scott. Enough said. Lou Fisto versus the New York Knockout. Now, the New York Knockout, I believe, was also called Nikki on the audio commentary. Of course, the audio commentary is not heard at the live show. It comes later. But the New York Knockout, just a wonderfully silly character, coming in, appearing like a one of these MTV babes, maybe from the late 80s, early 90s. She did this little thing with Lufisto, I think, saying something like, you can't hit me here, this is my meal ticket, pointing to her face. And Lufisto just kind of like didn't care. And I believe there was a moment also where Lufisto kind of like jumped on her and did the Bronco Buster move, which is kind of seen as a kind of ew move. And then she said something like, oh, I just took a shower this morning, don't worry, I'm very clean. And then she kind of like sniffed her armpit and made a stinky face. So there's Lufisto's character for you. Sometimes she fights dirty, and sometimes she just acts like a mischievous child in the ring. But she totally humiliated the New York Knockout. Knockout Nikki, whatever you want to call her, she was very egotistical, did not take Lufisto seriously, and had no idea what she was getting herself into with this crazy cosplaying anime person and all of her tricks. So it was a worthwhile, entertaining match. Not too serious, more comedic, but entertaining nonetheless. I think by that time the fans were awake, for sure, and I was awake and I was enjoying myself. So there you go. Leva Bates versus Sarah Del Rey. Now, Sarah Del Rey, of course, a very strong, very powerful wrestler, does not pull punches. And I don't think she took Leva Bates seriously. And Leva Bates, I think, knew that she was fighting someone very powerful. She tried her usual, cosplaying, character traits, trying to draw some kind of strength or lesson from the character she was portraying, but it didn't work. Sarah Del Rey is just too powerful and doesn't care, what your hobbies are. She'll kick you in the face and throw you around, and I didn't mind seeing that. I actually root for Sarah Del Rey. Leva Bates, of course, on her own, generally a straight arrow, if you will. With Alice in Danger, the two of them break the rules, bend the rules. Leva Bates gets the fans on her side, but nevertheless, I go with Sarah Del Rey on that one. So, but Sarah Del Rey has that bully streak in her, since she is a heel, so there you go. But she can back it up. She's not the classic bully who will fall over if you stand up to her. Moving on. Ray and Leon versus Mia Yim and Davina Rose. Now, this is a clear example of underdogs. Now, Davina Rose, In the past, I've said things about her saying, well, she's not one of my favorites, she seems this underdog, and so forth. And of course, she's done so well for herself in NXT, and great, good for her. Well, she, nevertheless, in every one of her matches, I would never say that she didn't try. She does her best. She looks as if she is giving it her all, but most of the time she just doesn't succeed because her opponents are just too powerful, and they don't care that she's smaller. They don't care if she's new. And Mia Yim is much the same way. Now, I appreciate Mia Yim's style more simply because of the kicks and the high-flying style, very similar to Kana in terms of her, submission moves and that sort of thing, as a wrestler. But the two of them, nevertheless, have a similar problem, if you will, is that they're young, they're inexperienced, they're trying really hard, but they just can't. They just go up against opponents that are too powerful, that will not cut them any slack. Now, Ray and Leon are Joshi wrestlers, very heroic, very powerful, very high-flying tag team. I think this was a good match, I think, to inject some credibility to the underdog team, showing that, you know what, they can do a lot. They can try hard, and I think that's the way most of these Joshi versus non-Joshi matches do, is that they show, you know what, you have these two underdog wrestlers, but they can actually go the distance with the best in the world, and that shows that they have spirit, they have heart, and they have a chance. It's almost like a test of their character. Can you go the distance? Can you survive against this incredible athlete, or this incredible athletic team? And so, for that, I appreciate it. Otherwise, I just thought, this is a great opportunity for Ray and Leon to team up. The two of these masked Japanese wrestlers and their luchadora-inspired gimmicks to just, destroy these two underdogs. But not before those two underdogs had gotten in a few moves, done a few things, shown that they are worthy of our respect and our appreciation. So moving on. Casey Spinelli versus Kelly Skater. Now, Kelly Skater, of course, still a little bit of a villain, a little bit of a cheater, a little egotistical, in spite of things that would be set in motion that would change her into a hero. Casey Spinelli had debuted in Sparkle. I had not seen her before, but she came across as very charismatic, very beloved by the fans, someone who was full of confidence and was going to do well. She was not afraid. She would go forth and she would take on Kelly Skater. And Kelly Skater, it's funny because she has an ego, but Kelly Skater's ego is too big for her and her abilities, whereas Casey Spinelli's ego is just the right size. So let's put it that way. So I appreciated Casey Spinelli. I was sorry I didn't see more of her, but it was a good match. She just came in very professional and did a great job. So I appreciated that, even though I am a bigger Kelly Skater fan. And I don't care if Kelly Skater loses. I don't care if she does silly things. She's just a very entertaining wrestler. So I loved this match. Very good. Mischief versus Jessie McKay. This match was, I will call it the video game match, because it reminded me very much of course, at the time, I was not playing WWE 2K14 because it didn't yet exist. This was only 2011, 2012, I should say. But nevertheless, there is a moment in this match, very funny, very silly. Mischief is becoming more of this lovable monster, a nice monster, a good monster, still a monster, but she'll scream in your face, and if you're nice to her, she'll kind of smile and, give you a hug, that type of person. as opposed to the past where she'd spit green mist in your eyes and slam you on top of your head before you even knew it, and stare at you with these evil eyes. Well, Jessie McKay, everybody's favorite girlfriend, so the two of them are there. And I believe there was some talk of, well, what if Mischief rises again to the top and becomes the first two-time champion? What could that mean? And so this was portrayed as an opportunity for Jessie McKay of a younger generation, fewer injuries and so forth. I mean, Mischief has been through so much. I mean, she was wearing leg braces when she started in Shimmer. That's how much she'd gone through. But nevertheless, she always came across as a solid character. So Jessie McKay and Mischief fighting for a spot, to see who would become, that new rising contender, who would move forward, gaining that momentum, going for the championship and so forth. Well, there's this moment where I forget who starts it, but one of them goes for a finishing move, and then the other character reverses it into their finishing move, and then they reverse it into their finish, and they keep reversing, and they just kept on doing it, and the crowd was just kind of laughing along, because it's like, okay, how long can they keep this up? You're going to do one, and then the other, and the other one, and the other. And you can see this perfectly in the WWE 2K14, and I'm sure the other wrestling video games, because the way the mechanic is, you start to do a move, and you have a very brief moment of opportunity where you can hit a button to reverse the move, and then do your own move. But they have the same opportunity to reverse the move back. And you can get in this tug of war where it's just ridiculous. It's like, well, whose hand is going to get tired first? Who's going to goof up and get flattened? So the two of them kept this up for quite a while. It was very silly. But I think it was the first time I'd seen it, so nice of them to try something new, just to entertain the fans. But I do miss the competitive, kind of scary, more active style of Mischief from her early career. And I realize she can't do as much as she used to, but I think she was doing her best. And of course, people who are dedicated fans of her won't mind if she takes these kind of shortcuts to entertain the fans without necessarily doing the same hard-hitting style that she was known for in the past. I mean, most wrestlers go through this. Even if they're not injured, they age, and simply their bodies can't keep up with the demands of being a real-life superhero, if you will, or supernatural scary character, whatever the case may be. So, moving on, Athena versus Nicole Matthews. Once again, Nicole Matthews, very impressive outing on this weekend. She really showed her quality as a singles wrestler. Very annoying, shrill voice, bringing her deviousness in her character, along with her genuine skill, as a double effect of a good heel character who is a legitimate threat to the other wrestlers. She doesn't have to be that large. She doesn't have to cheat all the time. But nevertheless, she uses those things to her advantage. And of course, Portia Perez is usually around to help her out, so that's another thing to look out for. Athena, of course, made a great impression on the fans with her early outing, and she does this move called the O-Face, where she jumps off the top rope and grabs her opponent into a stunner, like the Stone Cold Stunner, but it's off the top rope, and that always gets fans just going crazy. So I think Athena, even on her worst day, still does an adequate job, and the two of them, I think, were a good matchup. And there's always shenanigans when it comes to Nicole Matthews, little comedic moments. Well done, both of them. Kana versus Mercedes Martinez. Now, I think, of course, Mercedes Martinez, one of my favorite Shimmer wrestlers, favorite women wrestlers, especially on the Western Hemisphere. Her matches are always good. and I thought she did a wonderful job. Kana, great respect for her, and her amazing hard-hitting style. I think the two of them, it was just a very natural matchup to have the two of them, punches versus kicks, submissions, slaps, and all the usual things you'd expect from the two of them. And they just gave it their all. Very physical, very impactful, very memorable. I think sometimes it's hard to keep it all straight in my mind simply because they have so many good matches. But this particular matchup was just wonderful. Very demonstrative, very emblematic, iconographic. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that when you see a match like this, this is the type of match I think that exemplifies, there it is, exemplifies what Shimmer is all about, which is showing that women in wrestling do not have to rely on stereotypes of women in media, for example, to be effective as wrestlers. They can be the same warriors that male wrestlers portray. They portray it in their own way. They take these characters and they make them their own, and you forget, oh, I'm watching a women's wrestling match. I'm watching a wrestling match. This is entertaining, and I can suspend disbelief and imagine this is a real fight between real athletes, and I care about the outcome. And even if the wrestler that I was cheering for doesn't win, I still can appreciate the effort they put in and respect the opponent that was able to best them. And not just say, well, that person's bad because they won. It's like, no, they won because they were the better woman in the fight. And that is what wrestling is about. If it can draw you in that much so that you can believe it, and it feels real, and it's fun, it's not just, well, I'm watching some violence, this is distracting me. No, I'm drawn into the story, I care about the characters, and I care about the outcome. And I leave feeling invigorated and enjoy the story. So, very effective. That was a lot to say, but it was a good match. The Shimmer Tag Team title match was fought between, of course, the champions, Ayumi Kurihara and Yako Hamada, versus Haley Hatred and Calamity. And as with all of these matches, with Hamada, one of my favorite wrestlers, even before I came in, because I knew of her work in TNA, I just appreciate it very much. I think she made a great tag team with Yumi Kurihara. At times there were matches where it seemed as if Kurihara would be in there and she would just be getting pummeled, and Hamada is on the outside, is very frustrated, can't come in. But it makes sense because a lot of times what would happen is, since Hamada is a somewhat larger wrestler than the very small but agile Kurihara, the strategy of their opponents would be to cut off Hamada and not allowing her to come in. But then if she gets the hot tag, as they say, once she came in, boom, the crowd, it just explodes, because here she is to finally, bring it home. So I think at times they played the sort of the same roles over and over, but I didn't mind because I was having such a good time seeing them perform that it just didn't matter that much to me. But you know what to expect when you see these two working together. Haley Hatred and Calamity, of course, as a tag team, I really appreciated them. And of course, both of them are out of Shimmer. I'm not sure what Haley Hatred is doing these days, but Calamity has retired due to injury, apparently. Sadly missed. But the two of them, I think, made an effective tag team. And even though I didn't believe they would beat the reigning champions, nevertheless, I wanted to see them try. I was happy to cheer them on, even though I really wanted Hamada and Kurihara to continue to be the champions forever. But of course, they couldn't be forever because with visas and things like that, I'm sure it was not practical for them to always be the champions. But nevertheless, a very satisfying title match. Very entertaining. And Cheerleader Melissa versus Portia Perez at the end there. The final match. Now, I believe this match, in the live experience, there was a lot of, let's say, action outside the ring, and as a result, I felt as if, somewhat similar to some of the matches that Mercedes Martinez and Athena got into, a lot of out-of-the-ring stuff. And when you're in a live show, depending on where you're sitting, that can actually be kind of off-putting because you can't see what's going on. All you see is, a bunch of fans kind of moving around on the other side of the building, and there's nothing happening in the ring, and you're just where you're at. You can't just get up and climb over a bunch of chairs to go see. Now, if you're sitting way in the back, this is a treat because all of a sudden the wrestlers are right in front of you, throwing each other into chairs and things like that. So it all depends. Of course, on the digital versatile disc, you'll have, they'll follow the different cameras so you can actually see what's happening. One of the very early volumes, this happened where Cheerleader Melissa and Mischief actually went outside and they were fighting on the sidewalk, and there were a few fans outside, but those fans really must have been upset if they were still in their chairs and there's nothing happening inside the ring at all. So in this particular case, I missed some of the action, but nevertheless, I think it was a good matchup. I think Portia Perez has grown in her skills. She has shown that she can fight. She's not just someone who has to cheat or has to get outside help to win a match. She has her own skills, her own talents, and despite her small size, her youthful appearance that's often made fun of, she still is convincing as someone who is bad enough and is devious enough to actually be a challenge to someone like Cheerleader Melissa, who otherwise you would think would steamroll right over her, no problem. And Cheerleader Melissa, of course, at this time, just she wants to be the champion so badly, and everyone is after her to stop her, to sabotage her reign. I couldn't help but enjoy a match like this, even despite problems with visibility, some of which were my own fault, and others were just the luck of the draw. So overall, I would say this was 46, Shimmer Volume 46, good show, especially in combination with 45, but still not quite measuring up to the previous weekend. And doing them, back to back, as it were, I was a bit disappointed. But if you take it in isolation, it's really not a bad example of women's wrestling at all. Not a bad example of Shimmer, just very good, but on the heels of such an incredible weekend, it's just very hard to top that. So there you go. Good overall volume. Much better when you can actually see what's going on. And I'll leave it at that. So I'll be doing more reviews in the future. I'm trying to do a few of them together while they're still fresh, while I have time. And I appreciate any of your comments. If this leads people to check out Shimmer who haven't before, then I feel I've done something of a public service, because it is quite a wonderful opportunity to see what women's wrestling in the Western world can be. It may not always measure up to the best, but it is certainly much better than what is seen on television most of the time, and the bigger promotions. And I really think the bigger promotions have really dropped the ball. They've really let down the fans, and have convinced, unfortunately, many fans that women's wrestling doesn't matter. They talk about the divas in WWE as, well, this is the bathroom break match, and that's really unfortunate, because there are so many female wrestlers out there who can do a great job, and if they're only given the opportunity, if they're not hampered too much by kind of a cookie cutter expectation, if they're allowed to just do more, I think they really could be something very special. But until then, and as always, there are promotions like Shimmer which make this available to fans. So kudos once again to their efforts, and I'll see you in the next review.